Part 3. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 21. Ha, that's right, Tia nodded and smiled without caring what Ruger meant by hometown. The shadow you saw is probably the pet my mother left for me, which ordinary people can't see. Pet. The kind that helps players pick up things in the third generation? Or the kind that is like the summoned creatures of druid necromancers? Ruger was about to ask, but he didn't expect Tia, who was still smiling a second ago, to become serious and suppress his words. She took Ruger into a deeper shadow, and then made a few gestures to him with the help of the faint light of the fluorescent stone in her hand. According to the secret code they had agreed on before, the set of gestures meant that there was an unavoidable danger ahead. And, they had arrived at the destination. Yes, the set of gestures made two sets of secret codes. This also made Ruger's heart skip a beat, and he thought to himself that as expected, things were heading in the most troublesome direction. Secret code, arrived at the destination. The meaning is very simple, indicating that the front is the end of the two peoples deep into the evil cave this time, the cave in the cave leading to the evil spirit cave. As long as they passed through there, the two of them would have successfully entered the real destination of the strip, the evil spirit cave, from the evil cave. But at the same time, a secret code appeared, there was an unavoidable danger ahead. The so-called unavoidable danger was very similar to the times when Ruger was almost smelled by the huge beast. The difference was that the danger of this place was so great that even Tia herself could not overcome it. According to the agreement between the two, once the secret code appeared, it basically meant this road is blocked. The two of them either retreated to find another way or simply gave up this action completely. But, these two secret codes overlapped. In other words, the entrance of this cave in the cave was blocked by a group of monsters. Thinking in his heart, Ruger carefully approached Tia, who was investigating the situation in front, and asked softly, "Really, can't get through it?" Little Tia shook her head ambiguously, but her eyes were focused on the cave entrance. Ruger curiously followed her gaze, but the torches at the entrance of the cave greatly reduced the effectiveness of his night vision goggles. Switching back to normal vision, the firelight was too messy, and it was difficult to see the situation nearby. He only vaguely saw a rather round feline shadow, which seemed to be probing around the edge of the cave. Could it be that the feline pet was the eyes of little Tia exploring the cave? Soon, as the shadow became silent or disappeared, Tia leaned back to Ruger's ear and whispered, "It's not clear if there are monsters on the other side of the cave, but there are 4 zombies in the corridor. If we want to go over, we can't hide from these zombies. What should we do, Luigi? I feel that if we fight hard, we should be able to rush over." Feeling the girl's breath in his ear, Ruger was somewhat moved. Fortunately, after more than 10 hours of dating, his resistance to little Tia's natural charm has increased a little. Now it is such a critical moment, he quickly calmed down. He looked carefully near the cave entrance again and confirmed that there were no monsters, at least on this side of the cave entrance. Then the matter is just as Tia said, what they need to deal with is the 4 zombies in the cave corridor. As for the enemies on the other side of the cave entrance, according to Tia's theory of monster and evil spirit hostility, it is unlikely to be evil spirits. If there are evil spirits guarding the cave entrance, the zombies in the corridor should fight with them. Then even if there are, they will only be the zombies' allies. According to the theory of magic diffusion of world stone fragments, the stronger the monsters are, the less willing they are to leave the core area. So even if there are still enemies, they will only be weaker than the 4 zombies. After thinking about it, Luger nodded secretly, copied the Mossberg 590M behind him into his hand, and unloaded the magazine. Then he conjured up several magazines full of armor-piercing bullets, loaded one on his gun, and handed the rest to Tia. The bomb girl had also picked up the imitation Remington 870DM at this time. Unlike Luger, the magazine on her gun was originally armor-piercing bullets, so there was no need to change the bullet temporarily. After taking the magazine from Ruger, she only needed to clip it on her tool belt. Having seen Ruger shoot a nightmare zombie in the cave with 2 shots, Tia already understood what he meant. As long as the 2 of them act quickly and cooperate well, 4 zombies can be shot by each of them with 4 shots. Since that's the case, there's nothing else to say. Let's go for it. Both of them are resolute and swift, and since they have made up their minds to rush in, they won't hesitate. Ruger just nodded fiercely, and the 2 of them rushed towards the cave entrance. But even so, the 2 did not waste the effect of the magic shadow cloak on their bodies, and still maintained a half-squatting posture. Until the 2 rushed into the cave entrance, aimed their guns at their respective targets and pulled the trigger, the shadow effect slowly disappeared like a ripple. Bang! There was only 1 shot in the 2 shots, which means that the timing of the 2 shots was only a few tens of microseconds apart at most, or even less. The gunshot was so sudden that the zombies in the corridor didn't react. So the 2 of them fired again, bang. In just one encounter, the 2 fired 4 armor-piercing bullets. According to previous experience, the 2 targets should have fallen down. However, a strange thing happened. Although the 2 zombies were hit in the head, only one of them fell down. How is it possible? Are the monsters here tougher? Luger was a little surprised, thinking that maybe there was something wrong with the gun he made, and the power was reduced. It shouldn't be, after all, the ammunition was directly purchased from the system. He subconsciously opened the system panel, and saw that it was written. Kill undead creatures, violent zombies, nightmare, get 52 points. What the hell? Violent zombies. Oh my god, can't these guys be blue elite monsters? Ah. Brother Lou, what did you say? Although Tia was a little confused, she was experienced after all, and her fighting spirit was not damaged at this time. Seeing the other 2 zombies in the distance come to their senses and rush towards the 2 of them, Ruger didn't bother to explain, and immediately fired another shot. And then shouted, "Keep going. Don't stop. 1 shot, 2 shots." He was now attacking the one that Tia had hit at the beginning. Counting it, Tia had already emptied the first magazine, and he had also fired the 5th shot. This guy had been shot with 9 armor-piercing bullets, but he was still forcing himself to rush towards Tia. It was simply abnormal. However, considering that Tia aimed at its legs instead of its head in order to slow it down, it seemed okay. With Tia's restraint, Luger could safely shoot at its head. Seeing that the 6th armor-piercing bullet had been loaded, Luger had unloaded the empty magazine with his left hand and pushed the 2nd full magazine up at the same time. Anyway, with the more than 50 points contributed by the guy before, he had enough ammunition. And just after the 6th round of ammunition was fired, there was a pop, and the guy's stubborn head finally exploded. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 22. Ding Dong. Kill the undead creature, crazy zombie, nightmare, get 61 points. As soon as he saw the crazy affix in the system kill record, Ruger no longer hesitated and immediately confirmed the current situation. Hey! These guys are blue elite monsters. Don't say it, Ruger is not unfamiliar with these affixes. Monsters with the violent attribute have less health, so 2 shots can almost knock them down. Crazy has high health, no wonder it has been holding up for so long under the concentrated fire of 2 people. However, if the attribute mechanism of the monsters here is really so similar to the original game, it would be bad. Among the attributes that appear in the elite monsters of a team of 4, violent is basically the most fragile. Although crazy has thick blood, it has no advantage in defense. There are 3 possible attributes for the remaining 2 zombies. In addition to fanatical with lower defense but fast movement, the other 2 are more difficult to bite. Looking at the 2 zombies rushing towards the side, Ruger confirmed that none of them had a fragile skin with a movement speed bonus. That would be terrible. The remaining 2 entries, one is champions or bosses, and the other is ghosts. Although the former does not have many attribute bonuses, it has no obvious shortcomings and is the kind that has been fully strengthened. The latter is more troublesome. On the basis of the former having no obvious shortcomings, it also has cold attacks and a certain degree of physical immunity. The enhanced attacks of these 2 guys may not be able to kill Xiaotia instantly, but they should be enough to deal with Ruger. Even if Ruger's physical strength has now risen to 6 points, at most he can survive the first attack with the help of heavy protective clothing. If there is a second attack, even if he gives himself an injection of healing potion in advance, I am afraid that before the effect of the potion can be exerted, he will be game over directly. But things have come to this point, it is useless to think about those messes. Ruger is familiar with this situation. Isn't this just like returning to the first zombie tide? What's the matter? Isn't it just a fight? It's not like we haven't fought before. At that moment, Ruger's mind was clear, with only the gun in his hand in his mind and the target in his eyes. The zombie's head. Bang. The armor-piercing bullet flew out of the barrel under the explosion of the propellant. As soon as it left the muzzle, the outer layer of the tungsten alloy core flew away under the action of air resistance. And the core with smaller resistance in the center immediately showed its true form. Compared with the tungsten alloy core, the mass of the soft core is very low, and it can't take away much of the kinetic energy given by the explosion of the propellant. So the core carries most of the kinetic energy and rushes straight to the target at a speed that is not reduced. Dang, a sound of metal and stone colliding sounded. Obviously, this shot failed to penetrate the skin of the elite zombie again. However, this time was different from the past. Before the sound just sounded and had not faded, another dang was heard. It was like the sound of a steel pipe hitting a bell. Looking at Ruger, he held the trigger tightly with his right hand, while his left hand pulled the handguard to load the bullet into the chamber at an incredible speed. Every time the ammunition was fed into the chamber, it was immediately fired several times. With this firing rate, it is probably comparable to some automatic rifles. It is just like those fast shooters in Western movies who use single-action revolvers to play rapid fire. This is the legendary slam fire, a collision fire, or a violent discharge. Old shotguns such as the Winchester M1837 can do this action. It is said that even ordinary shotgun soldiers in World War I could fire all 6 rounds of ammunition in just 2 seconds with a little training. In that era when there were no automatic rifles, this firing rate once drove the enemy crazy. It is even said that the enemy would not accept the surrender of shotgun soldiers because of this. However, the other side did the same thing to their flamethrowers. It seems to be balanced. However, the shotguns that followed this method were no longer used due to safety issues. A structure called a trigger dissector was added. After that, the trigger of the shotgun would not work if it was not reset. Shotguns such as the Remington M870 and the Mossberg 590 originally had this feature. But since Ruger could modify the Mossberg 5 and add a magazine to feed the bullets, it was not difficult to remove this feature. The sound of the steel pipe hitting the bell became smaller and muffled, and soon it was difficult to hear clearly. At the same time, the tungsten alloy core finally broke through the zombie's skin and kept inserting into its brain. Finally, as Ruger's second magazine was emptied, there was another pop. And the hard zombie's head was finally cracked and fragments were scattered. Ruger finally heard the third system ding-dong prompt. Kill the undead creature, the champion's zombie, nightmare, and get 111 points. When he saw the 3-digit points, Ruger, who was a little irritated after a long time of attacking, all his worries disappeared immediately. So what if it was difficult to fight? In the end, he was standing while the opponent was lying? And he contributed so many points to him. That's enough. Moreover, as the third ding-dong sound ended, the system gave the fourth one. This time, it was a reminder that Ruger had mastered a new skill. Extreme reaction, acceleration. The assassin uses his mental power, telekinesis, to increase his attack and movement speed for a certain period of time. This is clearly the move that Tia taught him before, and it is also a skill in the Shadow training system. At that time, it took 80 points to solidify it, but now I have learned it by myself. What happened? In doubt, Ruger subconsciously looked at the attribute panel again and found that the virtual word +1 on the agility attribute had also disappeared. His agility has completely become a real 7 points. Is this because he has unconsciously digested the power of the agility enhancement medicine in actual combat? Could it be that because the agility attribute has reached the standard, he does not need additional points to learn the skill? In any case, this time he attacked the elite monster and made a lot of money. This is just his side. When the champion leader's body fell to the ground, several bright and crystal gems of various colors rolled out of it. Those are probably things like rubies and yellow gems in the original game. Seeing Tia's eyes light up when she saw them, Ruger knew that their value here would not be low. This battle is worth it in every aspect. It sounds tedious, but it didn't take Ruger too much time to investigate. While looking around, he had already replaced the third full magazine. Tia, who was holding the last elite zombie, had also emptied her magazine. After Ruger filled up his magazine, he took over. Bang! Sizzle! The first shot was not a ding-dong sound, nor a piercing sound. That kind of sound didn't sound like it hit anything, but more like it was rubbing against the edge of a smooth stone pillar. A sizzling sound. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 23. Lugger was previously focused on dealing with champion-affixed zombies and didn't pay attention here. Looking back now, it seems that Tia fired the entire magazine with this sound. On the other hand, the last zombie over there did not change anything after being hit by the projectile except for taking a symbolic half-step back. If it weren't for its low speed, it would basically have to take half a step back if it took one step forward, and it would have completely charged over long ago. Searched can on Google. Although it felt like a long time had passed since the two men started their attack, it was actually less than 10 seconds before the full attack was completed. Even so, the already loud gunfire was even more deafening because of the echo in the cavity. Although Tia relied on Nephilim physical strength and Lugger relied on noise-proof earplugs, they could not cover up the sound itself. A few seconds are enough for them to spread thousands of meters, and most of the monsters in the evil cave may have heard them. At this time, Lugger could vaguely hear the sound of charging like thousands of horses galloping behind the cave, even through the noise-proof earplugs. Needless to say, the monsters in the cave rushed this way. What he knew, even though he was wearing earplugs, how could little Tia, who had a magic pet over there to warn her, not know? Seeing that the last zombie was not seriously injured under Lugger's attack, she also felt an unknown fire rising out of thin air. She simply didn't change the magazine this time, and simply took out a big pineapple from her shoulder bag with her left hand. He shouted, "Fire in the hole," and threw the big guy towards the zombies. Hiss. Lugger was so frightened by these words that he gasped immediately. Okay, is this a gamer who has also traveled through time? But he calmed down quickly. After all, if the so-called lost people are modern Earthlings in the parallel world, it is normal for Xiaoxia to say such a thing. It's normal. There are so many normal things in this plane. Just when Lugger was doing some mental building for himself, the big pineapple also fell near the zombies. Boom. An explosion that was completely different from the gunshot but very similar sounded, and the area was enveloped in fire. An area of 10 meters in radius instantly turned into a sea of fire. If it weren't for the protective clothing's ability to keep warm and insulate, Luger would have been burned. It was obvious that Tia's big pineapple was the kind of large-area incendiary bomb she had tested before, not a fragmentation bomb. Well, Ruger thought that was true. After all, the main killing method of fragmentation bullets is the same as that of ordinary solid bullets, which rely on the kinetic energy of fragmentation projectiles. Of course, the same goes for armor-piercing bullets. Even because of the specialized materials, they have stronger penetrating power under the same kinetic energy. Therefore, under normal circumstances, if armor-piercing bullets are useless, then kinetic energy bullets that shoot kinetic energy fragments of the same magnitude will basically be useless. Luger knew this, and Xiao Tia obviously knew it too. Even if she was furious for a moment, the big pineapple thrown casually was still an incendiary bomb. Feeling the power of the incendiary bomb through the protective suit, Luger didn't take a step back, staring closely at the zombies in the firelight. The guy still looked unconscious at first, and kept rushing towards Tia. However, as the fire grew larger and larger, its body surface, which had remained unchanged even with several rounds of armor-piercing bullets, seemed to begin to distort. Soon, after a wave of energy swept over its body like ripples, the guy's body was directly ignited. At the same time, the elite zombie howled in pain for the first time. Weak fire. It's afraid of fire. Luger and Tia blurted out at the same time when they saw this. After hearing that the other party's judgment was the same as his own, they looked at each other and smiled, and each changed their weapons. Tia once again took out a big pineapple from her shoulder bag, but Ruger took out a double-barreled shotgun with a sun-barrel pistol grip. This gun is the same type as the one on Tia's leg holster, but it only has 2 barrels. Because it's much cheaper. Ruger opened the folding mechanism and immediately pushed in 2 rounds of blue and red ammunition. Pulling the gun back into standby mode, he immediately fired 2 rounds of ammunition towards the wailing zombies in the firelight. Needless to say, these 2 rounds were also some kind of incendiary bomb. As we all know, shotguns have a famous incendiary ammunition called Dragon's Breath. Its ammunition warhead projectile contains a large amount of magnesium powder, which can burn quickly and release high brightness and heat. However, in fact, due to the low density and light weight of magnesium, just like the sabot of an armor-piercing shelling projectile, very little kinetic energy can be distributed. The actual effective range of this ammunition is therefore impressive. So this thing is very dazzling and romantic when used as special fireworks at night. But when it comes to beating people, it is at best a torture tool used to deal with enemies. Because you'd better tie him up first and then shoot him at close range. This saves you from firing several shots in a row, and before you even light him up, he'll be out of your effective shooting range. If Luger was really asked to learn how to use a gun from scratch, he might actually be fooled by the name Dragon Breath bullet. But it's different with master-level mechanic knowledge. What he uses is a new type of bullet improved based on this thing. Single-head incendiary bomb. 2 single-head incendiary bombs passed through the last zombie in the middle of the sea of fire. As soon as they hit, their shells immediately shattered due to being blocked. Then the incendiary agent inside immediately flew out, adhered to the surface of the zombie, and burned fiercely. Instantly, 2 more intense flames rose from its chest, and the flames shot straight to its forehead. This thing was basically a piece of napalm wrapped in a brittle, ceramic, shell. After being burned by this thing, the zombie immediately became weaker, as if it was a candle in the wind and was about to die at any time. Seeing this, Ruger showed no mercy. After firing 2 rounds of ammunition, he habitually reloaded 2 rounds and fired again. The bullet has this advantage: high initial velocity. The second pineapple incendiary bomb thrown by Tia had a flying speed of only tens of meters per second and had just landed. Ruger's bullets with an initial velocity of several hundred meters had already fired the second round. Bang bang, 2 more flames shot into the sky, merging with Tia's pineapple flames and directly engulfing the zombie. Puff. As if a sealed plastic bag was burned through in the fire, the last zombie returned to hell unwillingly. Ding dong. Kill the undead creature, ghost zombie, nightmare, get 57 points. It seems that the system finally determined that it was Lugger who killed it. And this zombie that was fine even after taking several rounds of tungsten core armor-piercing bullets was indeed the ghost elite monster with physical immunity. To be honest, although Lugger had previously deduced that there would be such a monster, if it weren't for Tia's pineapple, he would have been a little confused. It's really good to have helpers. Thinking of this, he ignored the diamond-like thing that fell from the ghost, turned around and looked at Tia with a smile. Tia was also looking at him at this time, and after showing him a big smile, she fell to the ground lightly. At the same time, she was muttering, "Brother Lu, I'm so hungry." Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 24. Hungry again? You just ate several kilograms of beef, and it's only been less than 2 hours, and you're hungry again? Still fainted from hunger? Lugger instantly felt that there was nothing wrong with missing the Nephilim. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. What does this have to do with the Nephilim? Isn't this obvious? According to the principle of conservation of energy, if the Nephilim's bodies are so strong, their natural consumption will be great. Other professions, such as mages, may be able to draw energy from magic power and ensure energy conservation. But an assassin like Tia, who simply exercises her body and mind, has to rely on her own body. Think about it, didn't Lugger learn the 2 skills Tia taught him for the same reason? And when he uses these 2 skills, he consumes not only his own physical strength and energy. In contrast, it was not normal for Tia, who did not have 2 supplementary medicines, to faint from hunger after consuming too much. Well, another one that's pretty normal. Ruger, who instantly figured out the key, immediately picked up Tia, who was about to fall to the ground. Without paying close attention to the falling zombies, he walked past them while packing his things and throwing them into the space. He finally ran out of the cave-in-cave corridor before the hordes of monsters rushing over from the other side of the cave. As soon as he went out, he was somewhat worried, fearing that there would be monsters blocking him on the other side of the corridor. It turned out that the monster was indeed there, and it was indeed rushing towards him, but the evil spirit cave at the end of the corridor suddenly became clear. The space just connecting the cave corridor is probably dozens of times larger than the evil cave on the other side. If he hadn't walked over there little by little, Luge might have mistaken this place for some kind of mountain cave. Or simply it is a terrain surrounded by several mountain peaks, similar to a line of sky. But the world is not a gap between 2 mountain walls. It is more like the mountains on both sides have been hollowed out. It is no exaggeration to say that the space here is ample, even more spacious than the wooden house near the forest on the ground. In such a large space, how could Lugger be surrounded as long as it wasn't surrounded by a tidal wave of zombies like that in the ruined city? He just took a casual look and broke through the obstacle at the weakest point of the monster. Even though he was hugging Tia, who was talking in her sleep about eating meat, he still took the time to exchange a few frag grenades. He threw it at the monsters behind him that were still waiting to be chased. Boom boom boom. Kill undead creatures zombie nightmare level and get 35 points. Unfortunately, only 1 nightmare zombie was killed. Fortunately, the other monsters surrounding them were not dead but were somewhat injured, so their speed naturally slowed down. Lugger took the opportunity to run 2 steps and escaped from the most dangerous blockade. But as the powerful monsters from the evil cave rushed over, especially those elite monsters with acceleration affixes, they caught up with them. It is still a high probability that Lugger will be caught up again. Just when he was hesitating whether to simply expand the logistics space and hide for a while, he heard a strange voice beside him. "You brat, turn right ahead." The voice was hoarse in its magnetism, yet still a little wild in its calmness. If you say you are young, you look old. If you say you are older, it seems a little less mature. In short, he is a weirdo. Hearing such a strange sound in such a place, Luodu said it was a lie if he was not alert. Fortunately, when the voice sounded in front of him the next moment, he also saw a furry shadow rushing forward from his side. It's him, Tia's shadow demon pet. Hey, I forgot, this idiot can't hear me. I heard it. As soon as Luodu said these words, the shadow in front of him trembled. Fortunately, he recovered quickly, snorted and ran straight ahead to lead the way. To say that this incorporeal shadow creature ran very fast, it only took a few flashes to run far away. But under its guidance, Luodu just swayed through a few turns among the stacks of rocks, and then threw the pursuers out of sight. Well, not bad, it should be safe now. Luodu took a few deep breaths, resisted the urge to use the stamina replenishing potion, and slowly put Tia down. Seeing Luodu put Tia on the ground and reach out to take out the small bag on her tool belt, the shadow immediately flashed to protect her. What do you want to do? I warn you, don't use those dirty ideas against my master. I've seen a lot of beasts like you, be careful I bite you. Upon seeing this, Luodu quickly raised his hands, performed a French military salute, and started to explain. I just want to take some exorcism potion and sprinkle it on, otherwise those guys will come looking for the smell. While explaining, Luodu looked at the shadow demon pet that was showing its complete form in front of him for the first time. Don't tell me, this guy's appearance is really strange. Call it a cat, it's several times bigger than a cat. Let's say it's a tiger and leopard, but it's much smaller than a tiger and leopard. The face is as hairy as a lion, but the sideburns are pointed. The most distinctive feature is its ears, with a tuft of thick black hair at the tips of each ear. After looking at it for a few times, Luodu finally remembered the name of this animal. Isn't this the legendary lynx? He took a few steps forward, glanced behind the feline shadow, and nodded in agreement. It's unmistakable. There is no long tail behind the butt, so it is undoubtedly a lynx. Hey, idiot, where are you looking? What are you going to do to my lower body, you pervert? When I saw you for the first time, I knew you were not a good person. Now you are finally exposed, right? Hurry up, I will give you one last chance. Wake up my master and let's go our separate ways. I will spare your life. Otherwise, I will let you taste the power of Simba's claws. To be honest, although ordinary lynxes are also wild, they are still cute overall. At least the face is pretty. But this one, I don't know if it's because the hair is a little too red or because of its bad temper, it looks so hideous. To Ruger, it feels more like another kind of cat, the caracal. Or the kind with bared teeth. Fortunately, Ruger will not really forget his business because of a magic pet. Seeing that it loyally protects it, he no longer insists on the exorcism potion. He took out a plate of barbecue from the space and put it to Tia's mouth. As expected, Tia, who had fainted from hunger, used her power again. When she smelled the meat, she started to eat the barbecue. Unable to escape or cover up the smell, Ruger had to pick up his shotgun and act as a guard. At the same time, he occasionally teased the lynx with a manel face who called himself Simba. Simba, right? What does your name mean? Huh, ignorant mortal, I am the king of lions, Simba. Tisk tisk. This guy doesn't know if he is a lion king or not, he is definitely the king of conversation termination. This guy is so arrogant that no one wants to say a second word to him. As for the name Simba. Hey, little Tia already has a shotgun of Chiappa Master and can say Fir Yin is really thick /. Another lynx magic pet named Simba is not a big deal. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 25. Yes, Yes, King Simba. It's the king of lions, Simba. Just when one person and one cat were shouting non-nutritious nonsense, Taya, who was full over there, finally woke up. Google search reading. Finding that she had eaten all but the bottom of another plate of barbecue, Taya's pretty face was covered with a hint of red. Fortunately, she had previous experience and she immediately confirmed the origin of the box of meat. She felt relieved and her mood also eased a lot. When she heard Luch chattering incomprehensible words over there, she was very curious and asked. Searched Can on Google. Lu, brother Lu, who are you talking to? Eh? Taya, you're awake. Lu Ge immediately turned around and came closer after hearing this. But how could he be as fast as a shadow? The guy flashed in front of Taya in the blink of an eye and said flatteringly like a pug. Master, you finally wake up. However, Taya didn't seem to hear it. She didn't even look at it. She didn't even move her eyes at all and still looked at Lugger. But Lugger still saw a trace of curiosity and expectation deep in her eyes. Seeing that he didn't answer, Taya couldn't help but ask again, Brother Lu, who were you talking to just now? Luch thought to himself, what does this mean? Can't you see your own magic pet? But soon, he seemed to understand something. He simply pointed at the lynx over there that was still acting like a pug despite being ignored. Follow this guy, your magic pet lynx. It's Simba, the king of lions. The pug was far less submissive to him than to Taya, and immediately turned around and said fiercely. But Taya hugged it with her backhand and said expectantly, Lu, brother Lu, can you really see it? Oh, what's possible? I just want to ask, is it a shadowy creature that can't breathe even if its throat is choked? Yeah. After hearing this, Tia quickly opened her arms and finally released the neck of a certain lynx. Hoochie, I almost died. Wait, don't pretend to me, when did you need to breathe? After reacting, Taya punched and kicked it again, which made Luch, who was disgusted by the guy, feel very comfortable. Master, I was wrong, please forgive me. Then, that white chick, no, that stupid, that person, please save me, I just saved you. Lugger enjoyed watching Taya taming her pet. When the lynx was finally able to coherently say a set of words begging for mercy, he nodded with satisfaction and looked at Tia. What's that, Taya? Your Simba seems to know that he was wrong. How about letting him go this time? Those who beg for mercy are still willing to negotiate. It seems that if the other side says no, he will immediately withdraw his efforts. But even so, Taya immediately stopped when she heard the words and let the guy go obediently. However, she still snorted at the lynx angrily, then turned to Lugger and said, Brother Lu, don't call him Simba. This guy won't go to Fangjawa for 3 days. What Simba? It's called Lao Nao Noo, the eternal Lao Nao Noo, or Lao Nao Noo for short. Lauguo. Lugger almost laughed when he heard this. This name is even more powerful and domineering. Could it be that Mr. Yu's father, Mr. Wang, is Lauguo? Needless to say, the lynx, who had been as submissive as a dog to Taya before, wanted to fight for it after hearing her name. It's a pity that I don't know what happened to them before, but Taya refused to let go of the word noisy. Not to mention, the lynx that pestered her to beg for a name change was becoming more and more worthy of the name Lao Nao Noo. If there hadn't been pursuers patrolling and chasing after them, their noise might have continued for a long time. However, after Lugger barely managed to kill the pursuers of 2 giant beasts with armor-piercing bullets, they finally stopped making noise and started taking action. The 3 of them worked together, some led the way, some held down the formation, and some took care of their whereabouts, and soon successfully threw off the pursuers. After this time, after finding a place to stay again, the conversation between the 2 finally gained some nourishment. First, Lugger took out all the gems dropped by the 4 elite zombies and divided them with Taya. Tia, who reciprocated the favor, immediately told him several conventional ways to use these gems. Don't even think about embedding it on equipment to improve attributes, but using alchemy to achieve similar methods is still feasible. However, according to Tia, this gem formed by condensing the remaining magic power when the monster dies has a way of using it that is most suitable for Ruger. That is to make special high-power ammunition. The reason why Tia's big pineapple incendiary bomb has such a wide range is related to the addition of some rubies. Red, yellow, green, blue, purple, and white, a total of 6 kinds of gemstones. Red, yellow, green, and blue correspond to fire, thunder, poison and ice, and the effect is very intuitive. Purple represents physics or matter, which can enhance strength and physical defense. Ruger guessed that this thing was probably very suitable for armor-piercing projectiles. White represents holiness or soul, which can strengthen the attack on undead creatures and improve all attribute resistance. If you deal with the ghostly entry monster from before, you can probably get into the soul with one shot. So when Tia suggested that she could teach Luger how to make these ammunition, he immediately nodded in agreement. Not only that, he simply pushed all the gems to Tia with his backhand and motioned for her to keep them. "Brother Lu, what are you doing?" Tia was very surprised. Ruger raised his eyebrows and laughed heartily. "Since I'm learning from you, teacher Tia, then these can be used as teaching aids. It's hard to say whether I can learn that skill before they are used up." "Brother Lu, you are always so modest." Tia also smiled and put them away. "You said you couldn't learn those 2 skills before, but I see you have mastered them well now." Tia seemed to remember something when she said this, and clapped her hands and shouted, "I know. Brother Lu, have you learned the true meaning of shadow training by analogy? That's why you can see Lauquoke." Luodu the lynx over there howled when he heard the name, but didn't dare to say anything else. Ruger was somewhat confused when he heard this. But the next second he found that he seemed to have ignored a prompt in the system panel. When I opened it, I saw the message following the prompt of learning extreme reaction, acceleration. Host spontaneously learns multiple lower-level skills, activates the upper-level skill, psychokinesis. Psychokinesis, psychokinesis. This name may be unfamiliar to many people, but its other translation is probably familiar to many people. That is telekinesis. Also called telekinesis. Ruger really didn't expect that the upper-level skill of those 2 skills, the true meaning of shadow training in Tia's mouth, was actually this thing. Good guy, it turns out that the so-called in order to prevent potential crises, assassins carefully practice mental power, is actually the famous telekinesis. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi. Chapter 26. The Western science, magic, and fantasy are a mess of special power systems, but in the end, there are actually 2 lines. Google search reading. One is called extrasensory perception, including but not limited to perspective, telepathy, sixth sense, and even precognition. The other is telekinesis. Even if it is something like magic curse, or the unethical American comic superpowers. As long as you want to explain the logic of the ability itself, it will eventually fall into these 2 lines. Of course, if the ability setting logic is "I won't tell you even if you kill me," then there is no way. The reason for this is that, first, in real history, human beings studied superpowers and finally summarized these 2 lines. Second, from a logical point of view, they basically cover all possibilities. The so-called extrasensory perception, to put it simply, is the ability of the purest spiritual power of human beings in the spiritual world. And telekinesis is the ability of the spirit in the material world. Unless humans create a third world outside the spiritual world and the material world, then these two should cover everything. What, according to the permutation and combination, there should be 4 results for the arrangement of 2 elements. The other 2 are material forces that affect the material world and the spiritual world. Aren't they the forces that humans have used and are using along the way? For example, the infrastructure maniac is the material affecting the material, and the entertainment industry is the material affecting the spirit. The above are collectively referred to as productivity. Well, the above explanation about supersensory and telekinesis seriously involves citing itself to prove itself. But no matter what, telekinesis is a superpower with a low lower limit but a very high upper limit, or even no upper limit. Just learning 2 drilling skills from Tia, but actually learning an ultimate ability, Lugger's excitement can be imagined. Ha, it's true. Brother Lou, you are really a genius. After getting Lugger's confirmation, Tia couldn't help but smile with relief. Genius. Hearing this word, Lugger was really a little flattered. This is different from the previous mechanic skill being called a genius. After all, that was the credit of the system template. But learning telekinesis is his own hard work. Hey, wait. It seems that when learning 2 skills, the system's skill setting of spending points to solidify the skills was triggered. Although the 80 points of the second time were not spent, the 120 points of the first time were really spent. Could it be that those points are the key to Ruger's qualification to learn telekinesis? Is it equivalent to using those points to cleanse the marrow and change the muscles? Thinking about it this way, it seems that this time the genius has suddenly become water. Moreover, although the name of telekinesis is loud, there may really be no upper limit. However, specifically for him, isn't there only 2 skills available? A magic shadow cloak for hiding, and an extreme reaction for instant speed increase. Apart from that, the biggest use is to be able to see Tia's shadow pet links. That guy is still a snotty old noise, it's better not to see him. Why did he miss the 100 million of Nephilim and then picked up 90 million of telekinesis? It's just 90 million Vietnamese dong. More than 20,000 RMB. Although Ruger woke up from his dream, Tia was still happy. According to her, since her parents passed away, no one in the huge town of Rogue has seen the complete form of Old Noisy. No one else can see it? Even your teacher can't see it. This time, Ruger's curiosity was aroused again. Didn't you learn your shadow training from her? Tia shook her head. Teacher Catala has been a blacksmith, a businessman, and an alchemist, but has never been trained as an assassin. Is that so? Ruger roughly understood that Catala was Tia's alchemy teacher. Then the one who taught you shadow training was your mother. Unexpectedly, Tia shook her head again. My mother is a typical scholar, and she doesn't know these either. Scholar? Is there such a profession in the dark world? Well, maybe it's a variant of a branch of a certain profession? Ruger thought it was better to put these aside for now and continue the previous topic. Could it be that your father taught you? Ha, I guess you're going to say that. Tia almost burst out laughing. No, my father is a lost one, and he doesn't know these things. In fact, my shadow training was taught by one of their friends, or teammates. With the help of Old Noisy's ability. It turns out that although Tia was raised by her alchemy teacher Catala, she is not without the memory of her parents. It's just that when she was very young, about 6 or 7 years old, her parents and teammates died in a battle. Luckily, Old Noisy, who was once the pet of little Tia's mother, was imprinted with a lot of things in the memory of the four-sided people. So when Tia was able to communicate with Old Noisy, those things were passed on to her. Among them are methods such as shadow training, some special alchemy formulas, and how to enter the evil spirit cave to find fresh seeds. Wait, Ruger asked hurriedly, you mean, your parents also came to this evil spirit cave back then? Yes, they came, and they succeeded. Tia nodded, they are the seed bearers of that generation. Seed bearers. This name. Okay, they are both in the apocalyptic Middle Ages, so it's normal to have a similar element. This is another fashionable Doomsday element. After sighing for a moment, Ruger looked at the old noisy one who had shrunk into a shadow for some reason, and suddenly realized. Well, it knows how to get around in the evil spirit cave, and also knows what kind of enemies it will encounter. So you can make those big pineapple incendiary bombs in advance. So, what do those evil spirits look like? Like ghosts? Just like the zombie before. Ruger thought to himself that if this is the case, then wouldn't the points he exchanged for a bag of armor-piercing bullets be wasted? I saw Tia making large-scale incendiary bombs, why didn't I react? What kind of shotgun is used to shoot armor-piercing bullets? I should exchange for flamethrowers and individual cloud bomb rocket launchers. He cried out in his heart that he had been fooled, but Tia on the other side gnashed her teeth and glared at a certain shadow, then smiled bitterly. It should have known, but it forgot again. It only remembers some fragments now, and I can only make some preparations in advance based on those fragments. Huh? There is such a thing? Ruger stared blankly at the old noisy man who was curled up and trembling, and then at Tia who looked helpless. Finally, he understood why the relationship between the master and the servant, the master and the pet, was so strange. Well, he could forget such a thing? Then could he have forgotten something more important to her? For example, the message from her parents. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 27. Character, Lugger. Gender, race, health, physical strength, energy, etc., omitted. Current points, 477, minus 100. Attributes, strength 4, agility 7, physique 6, spirit 5, intelligence 6, perception 6. Skill. Single-hand weapon proficiency, 1 basic. Pistol weapon proficiency, 7 intermediate. Los Santos mechanic, 3 master. Specialization, slightly. Telekinesis, 2 basic. Shadow cloak. Extreme reaction. Google search reading. Current task. Task 1, goal, explore the basic situation of the current area reward, 10-50 points. Mission 2, goal, explore the ruins of the lost named evil spirit cave reward, 150-450 points. Mission 3, goal, help alchemist Tia max complete food seeding reward, 600 points. Task 4, goal, learn how to make attribute ammunition from alchemist Tia reward, unlock the right to purchase related materials. After a few hours, he finished browsing his attribute panel again, and Lugger was really a little excited. The basic attributes and skills have been seen before. The points wallet has swelled again with the help of the 4 zombies who scattered money, which is very gratifying. However, what pleased him most was the change in the mission. The completion of the first 2 exploration tasks has been improved to varying degrees. The reward for the 3rd task was unexpectedly increased by 100 points. I don't know if it's because the mission description has changed. These were okay, but what surprised Lugger the most was the 4th task. This was a mission that was triggered when he and Tia distributed the spoils before. At that time, he only looked at the telekinesis and ignored it. The reward for this mission itself is not that big. It just means that after Lugger learns to make attribute ammunition, he can directly buy those monster gems in the space. How should I put it? Although Tia's incendiary bomb proved that the gems were quite effective, Lugger was not particularly moved. However, this mission reward also has a subtext. Is it true that as long as Lugger learns a technology, the raw materials used in this technology will be available for sale in space? If you learn how to make the elixir of immortality or something. Well, It seems like he thinks a little too much. It's better to be down to earth. No, while he was browsing the attribute panel, Laoneokeo used his limited memory to bring the two of them to a ruins. The so-called ruins are a collection of dilapidated buildings. I don't know how the fragments of the Dark World fell and embedded themselves in the crust of the Lost World. Ruger used to think it was equivalent to sticking a piece of plasticine on the surface of the globe. But now it seems that it is not that simple. He entered the evil cave from the ground before and wandered around in it for more than an hour. Through a long and narrow corridor, we arrived at an area that resembled a line of sky between two mountain gorges. The interior of this line of sky is quite large, and it feels like a valley turning into a basin. It's already amazing to get here. It seems that the piece of clay in the Dark World is not stuck on the smooth and flat surface of the globe. Instead, it is stuck on the sand table with complicated terrain. When he saw the strange and unique ruins in front of him, he finally came to his senses. The fragment of the Dark World that fell here is not some kind of clay, but more like a colonial satellite from the UC series Gundam. It's just that the material of this fragment is hard enough. Even if it was knocked down and smashed into the ground, it did not shatter. Why do you say that? Because the ruins in front of Ruger are not high-rise buildings or roads and squares. But it is a sewer that is impossible to see from the ground. Yes, it is the European-style modern urban sewer system that looks like an underground labyrinth. The most famous resident passerby in this system was probably the Phantom of the Opera Midnight Singer. It turned out to be 4 green turtles who loved eating pizza. Sewers and sewers, whether built in a maze style or not, should at least be below ground level. However, the dilapidated sewer building in front of Luger was completely its cross-section along the road. The Dark World fragments were like hard armor-piercing projectiles. After penetrating the ground, they cut off the pipe below. That is to say, everyone is not only under the ground of the Dark World, but also under the ground of the world of the Lost. Good guy, could this be the prototype of the so-called 18 levels of hell? How's it going? Did you remember anything again? Hearing Taya asking Laoneokeo, Luge quickly recovered from his thoughts and looked over there. When the Shadow Lynx heard this, he walked into the ruins first, sniffing this and that, and then thought about it for a while. But in the end, he shook his head. Nothing new. Just remember that not long after passing here, there will be the first batch of enemies, the ones who are afraid of fire. Okay, Taya sighed slightly, but quickly cheered up and looked at Luger. Brother Lu, let's go. Good. According to Laoneokeo's memory, in this sewer maze system called the Evil Spirit Cave, using the shadow cloak will no longer help. Even in its shadow form, it did not dare to move too far away from the two of them. Instead, it shrank and lay on Tia's shoulders. So the two of them changed their previous caution and turned on their respective lighting props. With the help of helmet flashlights and the light of fluorescent gems, the two quickly entered a shallow water area after breaking the pipe wall. Fortunately, it has been decades since the last normal operation of the Lost City. The urban wastewater in the sewer has long been drained or naturally decomposed. Although the smell here is still not good, the water quality itself is not bad. Probably between natural lakes and ponds. In short, it is much better than mixing with some waste. As they continue to move forward, the terrain gradually becomes lower. As the environment becomes colder and more humid, the water in the pipe gradually increases, and soon the accumulated water has submerged the feet of the two people. As the accumulated water becomes thicker, there are more and more messy things in it. As she walked, Tia felt something slowly drilling into her feet. She thought it was a lump of silt, and she wanted to clean it up by lifting her foot. However, when the fluorescent stone shone over, she saw that the green and yellowish thing on the feet that looked like clay actually moved by itself. The thing squirmed and stretched out several tentacles, and under the guidance of a big eyeball, it rolled straight onto Tia's leg. Evil spirit. This is an evil spirit. Be careful, old Noisy shouted immediately. What? This mud monster-like thing is an evil spirit? What's evil about this thing? Disgusting evil, right? Spirit. Did it mistake the slime for a smurf? He used his facial skills on the thing, while Tia raised one leg slightly and put on a leg and boxing stance without changing her expression. Then she used all her strength to kick a shadowless kick at the side wall. After the kick, the mud monster was immediately thrown out by the huge inertia and stuck to the wall with a snap. Tia, who had retracted her foot, did not stop, but turned around, took out a big pineapple from her bag, and threw it over with the help of the turning force. The fuse on this big pineapple is not an ordinary impact type but a delayed type. After flying out, it exploded before landing, and the flames spread all around, instantly engulfing the lump stuck on the wall. Tia's incendiary bomb is very fast, a sound, burning, and the fire can't be stopped for a while. However, taking advantage of the gap between the swinging flames, Ruger quickly saw the fate of the lump of mud on the wall. How to say it, it has become a thin piece of mud. Ruger turned his head to look at Tia, who was pretending to be calm but still shaking her legs and washing her shoes in the water, and couldn't help laughing. Well, if this special incendiary bomb hadn't flown out later, he really thought Tia was not afraid of that thing. Now it seems that this is just like using a cannon to kill rats. How can you say you are not afraid? Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai Chi Ji. Chapter 28. Seeing Lu Ji suppressing laughter, Tia couldn't help but cross her waist and said angrily, "What, just laugh if you want to." "Ah! What are you laughing at? You're not smiling." He was still resisting, but the next second he saw the water near the two of them boiling like a boiling pot. Soon, round heads that were also green were revealed from the bubbles, with large eyes staring at him. "It's a group of evil spirits. Be careful." At this time, there was no need for Lao Now Noisy to warn them. They both turned around and ran back along the original road. Well, such a large group of sludge monsters, regardless of their high attack power, can make people sick to death. Anyway, Lugger felt that if he was wrapped up in these things, it would probably be the same as falling into a methane pit. It is completely worse than death. The two of them ran in front, and the slimes chasing them under the water were not slow at all. These things seemed to be expanding and contracting under the water, or squirming back and forth, and they all rushed forward like squids. Relying on this weird way of movement, he was able to follow Lugger closely behind them. "What should I do? There is stagnant water blocking it, and the fire will heat up too slowly. It doesn't seem to be very useful," Ruger said as he ran. "It's okay, look at me," Tia said confidently, reaching out and taking out two large paper bags from her satchel. He grabbed a corner of the paper bag with one hand and swung it backwards. Two balls of white powder flew out and splashed into the water. Luge thought to himself, what kind of alchemy potion is this? It doesn't seem to have any effect. The next moment, the sludge monsters encountered the powder in the stagnant water, and they all retreated in panic, wailing as if they were being burned. Unfortunately, there were too many of them, and the ones in front were pushed back by their companions behind before they even took 2 steps back. What a blessing this time, those unlucky ones turned out to be like wax statues being thrown into the steel-making furnace, melting away and disappearing in minutes. Then, what is that? "Hey, powerful dehydrating agent is best for dealing with this guy," Tia said proudly. Ruger thought it was easy to use, but it was really easy to use. That thick piece of green slime was stained by 2 handfuls of powder, and there were really 2 big holes melted out in the middle. Looking from a distance, it looked like a child had caught a cold, with 2 big streaks of snot running down his chin. "Hey brother Lou, your metaphor is so disgusting." Tia bared her teeth and complained, but she immediately laughed, "But don't say it, it really looks like." After talking and laughing for a while, the two of them were almost back near the entrance. Realizing that there was no more water under their feet, the two of them slowed down in unison and turned back to face the pursuing enemy almost at the same time. When they turned around, they both saw the weapon the other had just taken out, and couldn't help but smile at each other in tacit understanding. "Please spare me, it smells so strong," a certain cathead muttered. "Humph, if you still have the energy, get out of here and fight, or shut up." Tia curled her lips, then used both arms to throw out the two large pineapple incendiary bombs in her hands. In her shouts of burn, scream, and die, the ground in front quickly turned into a sea of fire. When Luigi heard this, what happened? Could it be that playing tricks has a damage bonus? So he threw the two cans in his hands and shouted, "Save your mother, save your mother." His two clay pots were unremarkable in appearance, and they had no fuses. However, when he fell into the sea of fire created by Tia and was shattered into pieces, the two seas of fire burned even more intensely. This thing is not a sophisticated thing, it is simple to make and easy to use. It just contains 2 lumps of napalm in the clay pot. It would be an understatement to call them napalm, which is 2 cans of gasoline with added thickener such as palmitic acid. The principle is simpler than his previous single-headed incendiary bomb, and at least the material requirements are lower. It's basically on the same level as the Molotov cocktail, which is a homemade Molotov cocktail. Moreover, Xiao Tia used a big pineapple to explode the sea of fire first, and he ignited it himself to ensure that the clay pot would break when it fell to the ground. As a result, the price of this thing is quite cheap. 4 seas of fire, 2 in front and 2 in back, exploded one after another. There was me among you and you among me, blocking the entire horizontal ground. Even vertically, the sea of fire spread tens of meters long. As the water in the shallow water area is slowly dried up by the flames, it even tends to spread. In the past, it was just 2 handfuls of dehydrating agent that solved countless green slimes. This time, it was a complete sea of fire. Those disgusting monsters that were charging too fast and had no time to stop were like raw materials being fed into a brick oven on an assembly line. Before he could even cry out, there was a crackling sound, and he was burned into cooked bricks by the flames. It gave Lugger the feeling that the lobster soldiers lining up to be shot were nothing more than that. He was just subconsciously complaining, but he didn't want to make it a prophecy. The green slime in the back row that didn't rush into the sea of fire and slowed down in time actually looked like a well-trained lobster soldier. They stopped neatly on the edge of the sea of fire, showing the weird big eyes on their bodies, staring at the 2 people on the other side of the sea of fire. Although the eyes of this jelly monster showed no emotion, Lugger could feel the biting hatred. These guys actually know how to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Little Tia sighed in disbelief as she looked at the mud monster that had been running forward from behind the sea of fire. Lugger, on the other hand, stared at the kill record given by the system, frowning in confusion. What is this? Isn't it a slime? But why does this name look so familiar? Murderous amoeba. The names of monsters that contributed countless 1 points to Ruger in the system records. However, looking at this name that should have been unfamiliar, Ruger felt a sense of déjà vu. It seemed that he had seen it somewhere a long time ago, or heard someone say it. But perhaps it was too long ago. No matter how he recalled it, at most he felt that there was only a layer of window paper between them. Although it should be broken with 1 poke, it was always just the last one. After several repetitions, he had no progress, so he simply changed the angle and asked his partner. "Tia, how can these things be called evil spirits? Who gave them this name?" What? Tia didn't expect Ruger to ask this question, and was a little confused. Is there anything wrong with this name? What's the problem? Ruger thought to himself that this problem was not a big deal. I thought it was something like a ghost, but it turned out to be this kind of thing. I thought it was something like a corrupted earth element, but after looking at the system information, it turned out to be some kind of bug. This is very different from the evil spirit. Oh, wait, that's not right? After repeating the name of the evil spirit several times, Ruger finally figured it out. He kept calling the evil spirit, subconsciously forgetting that he was using the local language. Evil spirit is actually a translated name that he understood with his native language. According to the local language, this evil is more like weird, strange, and bizarre than evil. The so-called spirit is more similar to the in his native language, referring to all kinds of messy monsters. So, what is the evil spirit? It's not that it's weird. Weird demons. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 29. After figuring it out, Ruger felt suddenly enlightened and his mind was clear. Only then did he realize that the initial exploration mission had been completed automatically without him noticing. After all, it was a small mission with a maximum reward of only 50 points. The main reason why it was delayed until now was Ruger's curiosity. Google searched can. Otherwise, it should have been completed when the completion rate was 80%, why would it wait until now? Having seen those nightmare difficulty high-value monsters in the evil cave, 50 points did not make a ripple in Ruger's heart. But he did gain something else. At least he understood that this mission with a completion rate would be automatically completed once the completion rate reached 100%. It saved him from worrying about it. Although Tia's pineapple incendiary bomb had a long-lasting firepower, it was impossible for it to burn indefinitely. Fortunately, with Ruger's napalm jars as fuel, the sea of fire in front of them would not stop easily. Later, Tia simply used Ruger's pottery pot and turned the boring and repetitive labor of adding fuel to the fire into a kind of game. Tia's storm throw 10 rings, hit 3 bugs, get 3 points. 0 points for bugs. Lightning double strike, Tia 5 points, bugs still 0 points, ha ha ha. Seeing little Tia excitedly burning bugs, Ruger, who handed her the pottery pot, seemed to see himself roasting grasshoppers in elementary school. It seems that little Tia is also a naughty child in her bones. However, this feeling is not bad. Anyway, there are not many amoebas left, and even some smart ones have begun to turn around and run away. In general, little Tia can't play for long, and those things will collapse, so Ruger will let her go. However, as soon as he handed 2 more pottery pots to the bomb girl, he felt a headache and dizziness, and his whole body was weak and powerless. And he was about to fall to the ground. What's going on? Could it be that the mud monster will emit poisonous gas when burned by fire? Huh. Little Tia took the pottery jar with full energy, with a puzzled look on her face. Obviously, there was no sign of poisoning in her body. However, she also saw that Ruger's condition did not seem to be fake. After throwing away the pottery jar, she hurriedly took out the antidote from her bag and handed it to her. Seeing that she was fine, Ruger also doubted his judgment. He thought, is it because he is too tired? This shouldn't be the case. My physical strength has been raised to 6 points, but I am still so weak. As he thought, he opened the cork of the antidote potion, raised the bottle mouth and was about to drink it, but he felt a bad smell rushing into his nostrils. Well, it's hard to say whether it's poisoning or not. He was almost suffocated by this antidote potion. What the hell? This antidote, can't it be the antidote for the sad breeze? Ruger vomited 1,000-year-old stock in his heart, and he suppressed the nausea and drank the medicine. However, halfway through the drink, he felt the strange taste swirling in his mouth, and he finally couldn't help it, bent over and retched. No, it wasn't just that the medicine was too strong, it was more because it didn't work. That's right, after drinking half a bottle, Ruger's dizziness was still exactly the same as before, without any reduction. What happened? Half bent over, he subconsciously looked at the half bottle of liquid in his hand while thinking. Looking at the endless ripples on the surface of the liquid. Wait, ripples. Ruger felt a sudden flash of inspiration in his mind, and regardless of the dizziness, he turned around and took out the shotgun. He loaded it with a useless dragon breath bullet at the fastest speed, and shot a bright fire at the ceiling. In just a moment, the ceiling that his flashlight and Tia's fluorescent stone had not lit up was clearly shown in front of the two. At the same time, a group of fat rats hanging upside down on the ceiling fell down like bombs. Those things turned out to be large bats with a wingspan of more than 1 meter. It's true. It's an ultrasonic attack. The ultrasonic attack can make him dizzy and cause the water in the bottle to have extremely violent ripples. What? Tia was almost shocked by these big guys that suddenly flew out. What are these? Vampires. Damn, old chatterbox, you don't even remember such an important thing. Oh, big bats, vampires, this association seems to be quite smooth. This, I really don't remember, I don't have any impression at all. Old chatterbox looked aggrieved. I'm afraid the old master and his people didn't encounter these back then. Tia didn't believe old chatterbox's explanation at first. However, after being dragged by Ruger next to her to see the situation over there, she realized that what Shadow Link said might be true. Because most of the large bats that flew down from the ceiling did not rush towards the two of them, but flew to the other side of the sea of fire. Looking over there. Those amoeba troops that obey orders, can fight and stop, and are like those who have received professional military training, are actually standing there stupidly this time. The most puzzling thing is that those things seem to be afraid of falling behind, and they all stand up straight. Well, those who know them may think they are slimes, and those who don't know them may think they are bamboo shoots. Are they here to be inspected by the leaders? No, it's completely the opposite. Just look at those big bats, they fly over the sea of fire and immediately dive towards those guys. When it landed in front of them, it swallowed the whole amoeba alive with a flick of the water, and then flapped its wings and flew up again. After shaking 2 or 3 times while flying, the amoeba in its mouth slid into its stomach, and these guys even screamed. As if they were venting their satisfaction. What do you mean by standing at attention to accept the inspection? Those amoebas were standing there because of the ultrasonic attack of the big bats. These two kinds of ghosts are completely the relationship between food and predator. Seeing those big fat bats happily harvesting the amoeba on the ground, the two people here immediately believed what the old noisy said. From this point of view, when Tia's parents came here, they might not have been attacked by fat bats. They are just a group of foodies. But not all of them. Although most of them flew back to the other side of the sea of fire, there were also a few that flew to Ruger's side. A few blind guys pounced on Ruger with their teeth and claws, and the ultrasonic attack in their mouths did not stop. However, the enemy was in the dark and we were in the light before, and we were dizzy by the strange attacks that we didn't know the principle of. There was nothing we could do. But now that the cards are open, Ruger will not indulge them anymore. It's just dizziness, it's uncomfortable, but it's not fatal. Ruger just steadily replaced the 590mm with an ordinary buckshot magazine. And banged a few times at the bats that flew over without knowing whether to live or die, and the world became quiet again. Kill the ultrasonic bat and get 1 point. Ruger really didn't expect that this fat bat with a wingspan of more than a meter actually had only 1 point, the same level as their food amoeba. Wait, could it be that the 1 point of those amoebas before was not given to each one? He hurriedly made a detailed list and looked at it, and found that as expected, those amoebas were not worth even 1 point individually. In total, it might be 7 or 8 heads that were converted into 1 point. Infinite Doomsday start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 30. Is a monster worth only 1 point powerful? This question really cannot be answered with a simple yes or no Google search reading. The dark zombies on the ground and the fallen demons holding swords and shields are only worth 1 point. Even if you say it is powerful, it is not the enemy of Ruger One Head. It may not be awesome, but it would have the power of life if faced by ordinary people. Think about it this way: how can these ultrasonic bats in the sewer be worth 1 point? Their trump card, ultrasonic attack, cannot even affect Nephilims like Tia in the slightest. It's no wonder Lao Now Noisy said that Tia's parents probably didn't encounter these things back then. They attacked, but the old couple didn't feel anything, but that doesn't mean they didn't encounter them. Lugger even doubted that these guys were capable of killing an ordinary person? Alright. With their huge bodies and sharp claws, they might be able to attack ordinary people who are dizzy by ultrasound. But unfortunately, they are not facing ordinary people, but Ruger. These guys may have fast attack speed, but compared to the monsters on the ground, their defense is extremely poor. Not one of them needed a second round of buckshot from the Ruger, and they couldn't even eat a full round. No, he only fired 3 magazines and 18 rounds of buckshot, but he gained more than 40 points. That is to say, on average, he can kill 2 half-fat bats with 1 deer bullet. Still, most of the bats flew back deep into the pipes after feasting on the amoeba. As soon as the surviving amoebas realized that they were no longer paralyzed by the bat's sound waves, they left the 2 of them behind and fled. In this way, Tia will no longer waste incendiary bombs to maintain the sea of fire. So Lugger basically played 7 in and 7 out in the half-burning flames, concentrating on bullying the big bat who hadn't escaped yet. Hey, it's just charming, but that's all. He was enjoying the fight here, but Xiaodia was somewhat bored. She still prefers setting fires and throwing bombs, and has little interest in shooting bats with a gun. After wandering around boredly for 2 times, she simply walked over to a relatively complete bat corpse, took out a short knife and started dissecting it. Soon, she took out the blood-covered organ and put it aside. She also found some iron sheets in her satchel. After jingling for a while, it actually made something like a tin lantern. What are you talking about? Lugger, who had defeated all the enemies, looked over and asked curiously. Xiaodia just smiled and didn't answer. She held a lantern and walked towards the water area. Hey, be careful, the water is deep over there, and there might be that disgusting monster ambushing you just now. Just as Lugger finished shouting the warning, he saw the water in front of Tia causing splashes. He looked over and saw that several green slimes had turned into bamboo shoots and grew out of the water. That look was exactly the same as when he was targeted by the bat before. That lantern of yours is a sonic gun. After understanding this, Lugger immediately followed suit, picking at the fallen bat carcasses, and soon came up with a new gadget. Different from Tia's lantern, his is a classic pump-action shotgun, similar to the Mossberg 590. A true sonic gun. Ha, that's interesting. Holding the freshly made sonic gun, Lugger pointed it into the water in front of him little by little. As he shined the muzzle of his gun, scattered green bamboo shoots emerged from under the water. He was taken away again by the double-barreled shotgun in his other hand. Seeing him, she looked over and had a great time playing. She made a lot of progress in the blink of an eye. Tia quickly reminded her. Brother Lu, be careful. That thing will wear out quickly if you use it for a long time. Lu Ge nodded immediately after hearing this, and his speed also slowed down. This so-called sonic gun sounds fantastic, as if it is some kind of magic weapon. But in fact, the main body is the vocal organ of the fat bat. It is a proper biological weapon and belongs to the science fiction side. The biggest difference between science fiction weapons and fantasy weapons is that, as mentioned before, they are greatly constrained by energy conservation. To put it simply, This sonic gun also consumes energy and does not have unlimited ammunition. Its energy is the energy supply organ in the bat that is connected behind the vocal organ, the digestive organ. That is, its gastrointestinal tract. After the amoeba swallowed by it is digested, the sonic gun is equivalent to emptying the magazine. As for asking if the amoeba can be caught and stuffed into the remaining organs to be used as ammunition? How should I put it, although the organs on this strange bat can still retain certain functions after the mother dies. It's as if this thing itself is a manufactured biological weapon. But Ruger doesn't intend to really go down this technical line. Instead of feeding the dead organs, he chose to collect a few more complete bat carcasses and keep them for reuse on the road. In short, the slime amoeba, which was extremely disgusting but could not be emptied due to excessive water accumulation, was no longer a problem. In this way, the forward speed of the two people also increased. Continuing deeper along the pipe, the space inside actually becomes more and more open. During this period, although some places were narrowed from time to time due to landslides, the overall space was steadily expanding. It seemed that the part the two entered was just a tributary of the sewer network. Now, what they entered was the main area. Interestingly, as the walls around the pipeline were damaged more and more, creatures began to appear on the exposed soil. The most common one was a kind of fluorescent bacteria that emitted a faint light. These lights looked very weak individually, but when they gathered together, they actually lit up a large area. As the two took back their lighting devices, the previous sonic gun materials gradually ran out. After the energy of the last set of gastrointestinal organs was exhausted, the two suddenly discovered that new ghosts had appeared again. It seems that the ghosts suppressed by ultrasound are not just amoebas. The first one to jump out was also a kind of insect, yellow and green strips. I don't know if the color is similar to amoeba, and this thing is also similar to that kind of colloid in texture. Facing this kind of monster, the two did not need to discuss. Xiaotia threw a pottery jar filled with napalm and smashed it on the ground. While Ruger took out a double-barreled shotgun and fired a dragon breath bullet at that side. A flame of burning magnesium powder like the breath of a dragon swept past, immediately igniting the gasoline fuel scattered nearby and even on the insects. In an instant, a new sea of fire took away another wave of insects. Kill the poisonous leech/paralyze the leech, get 1 point. Those insects are not one kind, but two kinds. It's another weak chicken insect worth only 1 point, it seems that I can breathe a sigh of relief. However, Ruger felt more and more that something was wrong. At this point, it is still said that the world of the lost may be a doomsday similar to radiation/wasteland/biochemistry/survival. Even Ruger himself does not believe it. Just look at these groups of flying in the sky, running underground and swimming in the water. It's like they escaped from the same biochemical arsenal. Biological weapons. Well, it seems that the zombies in the Resident Evil are also biological weapons. But the biochemical side should specialize in the direction of bacteria and viruses, and mutations based on this. And what Ruger saw in front of him was biological transformation with a relatively clearer goal.